Every time that I'm in a room with a camera showing something, I think to myself, well, this is good television, but it's bad democracy. I mean, you know, it's great that we have caucuses, we can show the rooms, great we have, you know, showing the lines. The fact of the matter is, there should be nothing to show. It should be very easy. You don't show people doing things that are easy.
Last night I got to see in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, that American democracy can be a pretty worn down and creaky Rube-Goldbergian machine. At times it's made that way on purpose. In other words, there are people who have an interest in making sure the country is less democratic than it should be. Take, for instance, Wisconsin Republican Representative Glenn Grothman, who as a state senator in 2014 told colleagues he wanted to nip early voting in the bud before it spread to more communities, and who just last night seemed to suggest that Wisconsin's voter ID law could skew the presidential election in Republicans' favor.
You know that a lot of Republicans since 1984 in the presidential races have not been able to win in Wisconsin. Why would it be any different for Ted Cruz or a Donald Trump?
Well, I think Hillary Clinton is about the weakest candidate the Democrats have ever put up, and now we have photo ID, and I think photo ID is going to make a little bit of a difference as well.
Huh, interesting. There's also the fact that the primary nominating process is not, well, strictly Democratic at all, since it is the party that actually decides the nominee. The decisions of a few party insiders can't ultimately outweigh the votes of millions of Americans. That's the point I pressed former RNC General Counsel Ben Ginsburg on yesterday. It seems to me that we have two trains careening towards each other. One of them is the fact that in the modern era, we have come to understand primaries as fundamentally small d democratic enterprises in which voters choose the person they want as the nominee. The other is that the actual rules of the system aren't that voters choose the nominee. Voters simply choose delegates through an attenuated process who then in turn choose the nominee. And it's going to be a bit of a rude awakening when those two things crash into each other in Cleveland.
Well, I don't think they crash into each other, Chris. You vote for members of Congress or your legislature or your city council, but you don't tell them how to vote on every matter. The delegate selection process is similar to that.
Now, Sam SEDER, MSNBC contributor, hosts a Majority Report. I thought that was such an illuminating answer because that's true in a technical sense. You're essentially electing a kind of almost quasi-legislative body that will go again and do this thing, which is adopt rules. But no one thinks of it that way.
Right. Yeah, I think there's going to be a really rude awakening for Republican primary voters, come July. And, I don't think that's the same, frankly, as the voting lines. Because, one is there's an opportunity, at least for Republican voters, to say, hey, our party completely rejected our expression of will. They're just not taking us seriously. The idea that representative from Wisconsin, there's only two options here where that guy gives that kind of answer, right? He's got to believe that every presidential election that has gone to a Democrat in Wisconsin has been the function of literally hundreds of thousands of fraudulent votes, in which case he should be on that right now, right? I mean, he should be holding investigations about that, or he just sees there's going to be an added bonus for us that we have consciously disenfranchised a whole set of people, and they happen to be Democrats.
But okay, so I totally agree. Like from a sort of moral perspective, these are very different things. Like voter ID laws that disenfranchise folks, make it a hassle to vote is one thing. Primary rule systems is another. What unites them, to my mind, is just the fact that we have set up all kinds of ways in American democracy that essentially just make it hard, attenuate the connection between the people and what happens democratically.
I'm not even talking morally, though. I'm talking just pragmatically.
Right.
Okay, the fact is those disenfranchised voters, they can't vote that guy out of office.
Right.
They don't have access to that. These Republican primary goers who are about to find out that, hey, I think there's a very good chance they're going to get, their choices are going to get screwed over in some respect.
I mean, we appreciate, they're going to be told, we appreciate your suggestions.
Right, exactly.
We'll be considering them in Cleveland, and we'll get back to you.
Been an interesting year. Thanks for playing. And at least those people have somewhere to go, right? Theoretically, they can continue to vote against their Republican congressman, their Republican senator. But those people who are disenfranchised, there's nowhere for them to go. Literally, there's nowhere for them to go. They can't even respond in terms of the electoral democratic process.
The other thing I saw, someone made this point to me once in a different context, in a different policy context, about just how much damage you can do with hassle. You know, look, I have a to-do list I could pull up here that's, I mean, there's things on there that have been there for 3 years. You know, and all it takes is a little bit of hassle to get me not to do it. You create enough little hassles, you could have big effects.
Well, sure, and frankly, that's the strategy, the way that the Republican Party is disenfranchising women's right to have sovereignty over their own body. I mean, that's the whole game plan
for abortion. Absolutely.
The
one hassle after another.
Exactly. We're just going to keep putting obstacles there and make it practically impossible to exercise that right. That's exactly what's going on with the disenfranchisement of voters.
And both constitutional rights, although both very contested constitutional rights. Sam SEDER, thanks for joining us.